Hi everyone, today we are going to talk about research, plagiarism, and citations, and I do want to remind you that you do have a uh, video lecture worksheet that goes along with this PowerPoint, so make sure that you complete that as you are watching and listening and submit that to Schoology prior to class tomorrow. I also want to remind you that much of what you are going to not only see but hear on this video lecture will be part of your persuasion quiz, so make sure that you are both watching and listening. So let's go ahead and get started. And the first thing we're going to talk about is research or finding evidence. So it's very important when you are looking for research for your persuasive topic that you find evidence from at least 3 different sources to support your main argument or thesis. The reason that you want at least 3 different sources is because if you get all of your information from one book, it's more like you're doing a book report than a persuasive paper. You want to make sure that you can get all of your necessary information from different sources, and that you can sort of synthesize them or mold them together to make your point. So the more research you do, the more reliable your information is going to be. You also want to make sure that you keep track of every single source that you use so that you can give credit for information taken from those sources. So a couple tips for compiling your research. As soon as you select a source for research, write down all the information needed for your Works Cited page. That way you don't have to go back later and look for it. Every single time you take a note or copy a direct quotation, every single time you need to make sure that you write down the source of that information. When you write an exact quotation, you always want to double check your work to make sure that you have written the quote word for word. You never want to misquote someone. Immediately put quotation marks around anything you copy word for word. And if you are taking notes using a computer, never ever copy and paste information from a website into your notes. It's way too easy to forget that you need to put that information into your own words, and so it's a lot easier to plagiarize that way even if you don't mean to. Now, as we go along with our research process, Mrs. James and I are going to be showing you some very helpful ways to use your iPad to make sure that you are keeping an accurate account of the research elements that you're using along the way. The next thing we're going to talk about is plagiarism. A couple things that I need you to remember about plagiarism is that plagiarism is copying anything without giving the proper credit. Even if you do not give the proper credit by accident, you simply forget, it is still considered plagiarism. Plagiarism can get you into a lot of trouble, especially not only in high school, but especially in college as well. You can end up flunking classes. You can actually end up being expelled from the university. Plagiarism is a crime. You can be fined up to $50,000 and or be given jail time. So keep that in mind, that when we're talking about plagiarism, it is a very serious thing. And the quicker we know how to make sure we're not plagiarizing, the easier it becomes. So citing your sources is a writer's best defense against plagiarism. And you need to remember that just because material doesn't have a copyright symbol doesn't mean it's not copyrighted. In fact, the current copyright law holds that anything a person writes is immediately protected by copyright law, whether or not it uses that copyright symbol. So writers should cite sources when they use quotes or copy word for word from a source, paraphrase or rewrite material from another source, use ideas expressed by someone else, or create ideas that are based on someone else's material or ideas. So basically, any time that you use something that is not your own original thought, you need to make sure that you cite your resources. Now, there is a difference between using someone else's material and something called common knowledge. Common knowledge does not require a citation. And the reason common knowledge does not require a citation is because common knowledge is a body of information that is commonly known and that can be found in a variety of different sources. So, for example, if I say penguins live in Antarctica, there are various books, websites, encyclopedias that will confirm that penguins live in Antarctica. That's pretty common knowledge. Another example of common knowledge is the fact that Denver is the capital of Colorado. We can find that information in a lot of places, and most people would, when asked, know that Denver is, in fact, the capital of Colorado. However, if you are in doubt of whether or not something is common knowledge, just cite your source. It's better to protect yourself that way. So, how to cite sources using MLA format? Well, the first step is within your paper, which would be your in-text citations. To give credit to a source in your paper, you need to put in parentheses the author's last name and the page number or numbers where you found the information. So, as you can see, most people have heard the saying, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. That part of the sentence is actually a quote from Shakespeare. It is not something I came up with myself. So I would put, after the quotation marks, a parenthesis, Shakespeare, the number 45 for the page number, another parenthesis, and then a period. You'll notice that I don't have a period before the parenthesis, and there is no sort of punctuation in between the author's last name and the page number. Now, a lot of electronic sources lack page numbers, so you would just omit that from the in-text citation. If you can't find the author's name, which sometimes happens, you would use the title of the work instead of the author's name. So some experts believe that Shakespeare may not have written all of the plays that carry his name. If I didn't know who wrote that statement, I would just use the title of the work, which it came from, which is No Fear Shakespeare, and then again I have the page number. Again, punctuating in-text citations is simple. You put the parentheses before the end punctuation in the sentence. You do not use any punctuation between the author's name or the title of the work and the page number. Step 2 for citing your resources is at the end of the paper in a works cited page, which you should be familiar with from last year. This will include any book, magazine article, web page, interview that you have used. And we usually have the author, the title, the city of publication, the publisher, the year published, and the medium. Now for electronic sources, which is probably what most of you will be using, we use the author's name, last name first, if we have an author. The title of the work goes in quotes. The title of the website is italicized. Then we have the name of the publisher or sponsoring organization, the date that it was published or last updated, the medium, which will be web if it's from the internet, and then the date that you accessed it. So if you need more help, the Purdue Online Writing Lab, also known as the Purdue OWL, is a great resource for checking to make sure that you are using MLA format correctly. And you have an app on your iPad called EasyBib, which you should be somewhat familiar with from last year, that we will also be using to make sure that we have good quality works cited pages. Okay, so that is the end of our presentation. Don't forget to turn in your research notes and make sure that that is done before class tomorrow. Have a great day.